Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Self Love Club Sunday. I am your host, Mary. For those of you who don't know me, I am the host. You are going to hear from me on basically every episode. You may have already seen that we have special guests that join us. We just had a guest that joined us a few days ago, so you should probably go back and visit that episode if you haven't. But a lot of the times, it's going to be me. We're going to be chatting. And by we, I mean I'll be chatting to you, and I envision you with me here in my little studio room that I have set up. It's a bit makeshift. I'm like in the corner of my husband's office. That slash is my office studio room right now. But it's very cozy, and I'm very excited to keep chatting about June's monthly intention. If you are new, you may not know what I'm talking about when I talk about a monthly intention. So every month here at the Self Love Club, we do a monthly intention, which is where we dive a little bit deeper into a certain theme, a topic, a area of growth that maybe we could all learn a little bit more in, that we could practice a bit more, understand, and really implement in our day-to-day life. And for June, our monthly intention is speak up. So get ready to use that voice and learn how to speak up for yourself, because that's something that we all should be able to do confidently in, our relationships, in our workplaces, in any situation really. Being able to voice what we want, voice our needs and our desires, and have the confidence to do so is vital for our happiness, our safety, and our boundaries. And that's why I thought this month would be a great month to learn how to speak up and really advocate for ourselves. You may know that we have been exploring the topic a little bit more, and each week we dive in a little bit deeper. And I know I say that probably too often, and if you're sick of hearing it, you can just leave a note or message me and just say, please stop saying dive in. But it kind of feels like that's what we do, is we dive in, and each week we go a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper, similar to if you were a scuba diver. You practice going deeper, whether it's with an oxygen tank or not. I always love an analogy, so I guess that's the analogy for this week. But yes, we are diving in a bit deeper this week, and I really wanted to focus in on implementing our speaking up, because I think it's so easy to talk about speaking up, to talk about the importance of it, why we should do it. But then actually the doing part of it can feel overwhelming, or like, I'll do that next week. I'm not going to actually speak up right now. I'll wait until later to do that. But it's so important. And this week I want to talk a little bit more about relationships. This can be platonic or romantic relationships, whatever that may be to you. But I think within relationships, it's such an easy place to feel a bit awkward when you're saying your opinion, especially if you know that it may come across harmful or hurtful to whoever you're in a relationship with. I think sometimes sharing our opinions feels accusatory when that's not the case at all. It's actually just being able to speak up for ourselves and share our perspective on our side of this two-way street relationship. So this week, I really want to talk more about relationships and how to implement the speaking up into your relationship, because it is very key. And I know we discussed this last week about building trust and respect in relationships. Without speaking up, without having that comfortable space and that safe space to do so in a relationship, your relationship can only get so deep and so strong. You really do need to continue to speak up, but also to challenge one another, to be there, to effectively listen to one another, to hear what they're saying, and to be able to communicate your side. And oftentimes it's not going to be agreed upon by both parties. So finding that way to compromise and meet in the middle is also a big part of when you speak up. That might be the result of what happens. So if you have listened before, you know that I love some like tangible aspect things like homework. I guess it's kind of fun at homework when it benefits you and you get to see your personal development and growth. It's not like learning your times tables back in grade 4. So this week, our homework is really actually going to be about looking at your relationships and looking at the connection that you have and how you can better speak up for yourself in that relationship, and then being able to put that into practice and see how it feels, and hopefully get past the like sticky feeling of maybe having an uncomfortable conversation, because a lot of times the uncomfortable conversations actually lead to really productive conversations and a deeper bonding connection. So one of the first things you want to be able to do when you are practicing this speaking up action is reflect on your feelings. It's pretty hard to speak up and express yourself if you don't know what you're feeling in that situation. And I know I've mentioned this before, that it's pretty easy to kind of shelf your feelings, ignore them, put them off to the side, or suppress them. And a lot of times those feelings are going to come out in different ways, which usually isn't like the best way when it comes out. It's kind of like an explosion because you weren't able to identify the feelings that you have in order to properly express them at the time. So before you decide to have these conversations or you decide to speak up, really check in with yourself, do a little bit of a reflection and see, what am I feeling? How can I articulate what I'm feeling using clear words, clear examples, and make sure that I'm not saying just a little bit of what I'm feeling, but I'm actually saying the whole thing. So an example would be, I've noticed that when we make plans with our friends, my input is often disregarded, and it makes me feel unimportant and unseen in our relationship. I'm sure you've been in a place, whether it's with a friend or a partner, where you've suggested, maybe going bowling with your friends, and your partner has suggested something else, like going to the movies, and the concept of bowling has never been brought up again and has been kind of disregarded. And that may be unintentional by your partner because they just don't like bowling, so they have no desire to go bowling. But it would make you feel like, well, if I'm saying this and you're not hearing it, are you even hearing me at any point in our relationship? And do you care about my perspective? So finding an example of a situation that has made you feel a certain way is a great starting point in terms of speaking up and also articulating your feelings, because when you're sharing how you feel, it's easier for the other person to understand that this isn't like an attack on them or their behavior, but it really is about your emotions and your feeling in the relationship. The next really important thing, this is one of my favorites, is choosing the right time and space to have a conversation. So yes, there's times that you need to speak up in the moment because it is vital for that moment for you to clearly draw a boundary, to say yes or no to something. But sometimes the conversation will not be beneficial if you have it in the heat of the moment. Sometimes the two of you need to take a few minutes to walk away, even if it's a conversation you're having over text. Maybe you need to stop replying over text, take a few minutes to breathe, and decide you're going to call that person. Because a lot of things can get misconstrued over text messages, and I've been there far too many times, and it's just easier to call or even send a voice note if that feels more comfortable for you. But choosing the right time and place to have that conversation allows you both to have the clear thoughts and ideally not feel so passionate about what's going on that maybe that passion can be taken in a negative way or come across aggressive or defensive when that's obviously not the situation. So sometimes it's important to be able to identify a time, maybe that's setting aside a weekly time, every Sunday with your partner, where you do sort of an emotional check-in and you let each other know how the week has been, how you've been feeling, if there's maybe something that made you feel unheard or disregarded. And this is a great time to bring it up because this is a time you've set aside and you've determined to be this type of conversation where you can hear each other and then find that compromise. So an example of this would be, I would like to talk about something. I know sometimes that's hard to say, but you can say, I'd like to talk about something that's been on my mind. Can we take a few minutes this evening to sit down and talk? Again, it's you're prefacing that you do want to talk about something. It's not a negative thing, but you have something that's been on your mind and you want to find the right time. And so you're making it a priority by asking for that time from your partner to sit down and actually go through that conversation. This is a big one, and I remember this one from elementary school. I don't know if you heard this, but if you did, please let me know in the show notes, or actually on Spotify, you can leave a comment. You can DM us on Instagram, and you can leave a voicemail for us, also linked in the show notes. But please let me know if you remember this from elementary school, is using I terms and I statements and I phrases. So instead of leading with, you did this and it made me feel, you need to be able to lead with an I. I felt this way when something happened. I feel, I am, or all those different I things is basically what you want to be leading with. So this approach is really important because it helps remove any of that accusatory feeling or attack feeling that your partner or your friend may have. Obviously, that's not what you're going for, and it's not going to lead to a positive conversation. So leading with your I approach is so important to make it more of a neutral ground for that conversation and not confrontational, and allows your perspective, and it allows your partner or your friend to understand your perspective, which is obviously what a whole conversation and being able to speak up is about. Is you want to be understood and you want them to have that space and the ability to not feel attacked or judged so that they can actually understand your perspective right away rather than feeling sort of like pushed or bullied into it. So another example, again, I love a little example because it makes things just more digestible when you can see it or hear it in reality. I guess for most of you, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can hear it. But if you're on YouTube, hello, and you can see me say the example. I feel unheard when I share my thoughts, and it leaves me questioning whether my opinions matter to you. I use this as an example because I have felt this way in a lot of different relationships in my life. I have often felt that there's times I will speak up and I'll say something and no one really will respond, whether that's in a group of friends or one-on-one. And if that person doesn't respond, I automatically shut down and I don't want to offer information. I wait to be asked questions. I don't want to bring anything up. I feel uncomfortable leading with my thoughts or my perspective. And it's from feeling as if my opinions don't matter in that room or in that conversation or in that group. And it's not a really good place to be because it also minimizes your confidence and understanding that your opinions and your feelings do matter. Flashback to last week. If you listened, your feelings and your opinions matter. So it is really important that you express that to your partner and to your friends and be able to articulate that in a I feel way so it doesn't make them feel like they're actively putting you down or ignoring you, whatever it may be. It may also just be a case of they were distracted, they didn't hear you clearly, who knows what it is, but it's giving them the opportunity to bring their response to the table so the two of you can have an open conversation because you didn't come in aggressive and like guns ablaze. So this one I think makes a lot of sense and is sort of straightforward, but be very specific if you can and have examples. I think it's easy to maybe make a comment to a partner or a friend that, I feel like you don't care about me. I feel like you ignore me. And they may question that saying, okay, well, I don't know how I've been ignoring you or not caring about you. Can you tell me how? And if you say, well, it's just, how you are with me or how things have been, a lot of times that's not going to give the actual information to your partner or friend so that they can see where they haven't been the best partner or friend to you and not been able to actually give you the time and respect and space to share. So having examples of when you've been, hurt or you've been unheard or ignored, whatever it may be, having those examples really will allow the person you're speaking with to look back into their memory and their experience and share their perspective of maybe what happened in that situation. And again, when you're sharing perspectives, it's really easy for you to both understand where you're coming from, respect each other's feelings, and then be able to meet in the middle and realize, okay, like I can do this a little bit better and they can do that a little bit better. And together we will have better communication and our bond will grow deeper together. So an example of this one would be, for instance, during the dinner party last week, I shared an idea, but it seemed like it went unnoticed as the conversation quickly shifted onto another topic. It left me feeling excluded and overlooked. So this is a great one in a friendship, whether it's, a couple friends or a full group of friends, or even just one singular friend, because a lot of times that can happen when there's a lot of personalities in one space. Is sometimes one person is the dominant voice in a conversation and in a group, and other people may end up shrinking themselves back and not feeling involved to the same level. But that doesn't mean that that's right or fair for everyone. So it is really important to be able to have these examples to bring them up confidently when you're having these conversations. I love this one. It's to express your needs. I think it's so important, and I've talked about this before, about understanding your deepest desires. It goes back to week 1 in finding your inner voice. Your inner voice knows what is right for you. It knows your deepest desires, your needs, your wants, all of that good stuff. And if you're not able to express it, you're never going to receive that from someone you're in a relationship with. And that's so important to have that type of love and care in a relationship, that you are getting your wants and needs met, and so are they. It has to be that two-way street. But without articulating it, without speaking up about your needs and expressing them, you likely won't have them met and fulfilled. So this is a great way to maybe bring in your love languages. If you haven't done your love languages quiz, I highly recommend it. It's just so fun to learn about yourself. But it's a great way to maybe talk about your love languages and say, I need more one-on-one quality time with you to feel that love and connection in our relationship. And if it's a friendship, maybe it's, I need to have more time where we're not going out and we're not just going to the bar, but maybe we're grabbing coffee and we're actually chatting and having space to have deeper conversations and not so surface level. And that's sort of a need that you have in that friendship. Another example would be, I appreciate if we could have more balanced conversations where my thoughts and opinions are valued. It would mean a lot to me if you actively listened and asked for my perspective. It would mean a lot to me if you actively asked for my perspective or opinion and then actively listened to my response. I think that one, again, comes back from my desire of having the partner or the friend that I'm in a relationship with ask me things about myself. I don't want to ever feel like I'm constantly just providing information that maybe that person's not even interested in. It's maybe an area of my life they don't care that much about, which I guess sounds kind of sad. But that whole concept of, when people ask you questions, it's because they actually want to know the answers. So that gives me a feeling of being valued and being loved in a relationship. So being able to ask for that is really important, because otherwise the partner or the person you're with may not know that that's something that really is valuable for you in your relationship and gives you more confidence and trust in that relationship. I think this one's very straightforward, but I'm going to say it anyways, is actively listening and mutual understanding. So it goes back to that whole, not just hearing, but actually listening and giving the opportunity for the person you're in a relationship with to share what they're feeling, and you actually are understanding what they're sharing. So this is an exchange that fosters understanding and paves the way for finding common ground and resolving conflicts. Doesn't that just sound so beautiful, so perfect, so what we all want in a relationship? So for example, you can express to someone you're with, I want to understand your perspective as well. Can you share with me how you perceive our communication dynamics? I believe open dialogue will help strengthen our relationship. One thing my husband and I have always said is communication can either bond us or break us. So we really focus on communication, and we are not perfect at it, but it's something that we are actively working on, is being able to communicate what's happening inside of our mind, whether it has anything to do with each other. It could even be my stress with work, his stress with work, my stress with my health, so many different things. But if I can't communicate to him what I'm internally dealing with, he can't show up and support me as a partner. So being able to ask for each other's perspective and have that mutual understanding is so valid. And knowing that, okay, maybe the way he's reacting to his work stress is not how I would react, but I can understand that that's what's best for him, and that's how he comprehends things that are going on, or how he's navigating his current struggles. We don't have to see eye to eye on everything, and in reality, that's not going to even be possible. But it's important to have that mutual understanding and then therefore respect for one another. And lastly, when it comes to speaking up, something that often will come about is a compromise, because it's not always going to be the exact same perspective shared or the same outlook obtained by each other. It really does come down to, okay, how can I take a step in? How can you take a step in? And how can we meet in the middle? Because that's what's going to benefit us and our relationship. So you want to collaborate with your partner to brainstorm some ideas and seek compromises that honor both your needs and theirs. You want to be open to adapting and finding middle ground to ensure a healthy balance within the relationship. This is something that has to happen from both sides. So again, if you're seeing it happening more from maybe your side or the other side, there needs to be open communication and discussion around how to fix that and how to find that common ground where you both are meeting in the middle and one person isn't always putting their wants and needs to the side. It really does have to be two ways. So for example, you could say, let's work together to find communication style that honors both of our voices. Maybe we can take turns actively listening to each other or set aside dedicated time to have meaningful conversations. So again, this could go back to having like a weekly conversation and check in with your partner, or a monthly conversation with your friend about just like, how are you feeling in your relationship? Do you feel valued and heard and seen? How can you better support one another? And sometimes this is a great thing to do when you know you're going into maybe a busier season with work or a more stressful period in life. You can actively show up before it gets stressful to ask for those things that you need from your partner and from your friend to keep that relationship grounded and have that great foundation of growing and deepening, because you are both actively being present and showing up for one another. So obviously speaking up for ourselves in a relationship is a vital step toward fostering open communication and mutual respect. To better grow in and with your partner, you both need to feel comfortable and confident in sharing your perspectives. Like anything, it's going to feel probably a little uncomfortable, maybe a little sticky when trying new things and new approaches. But with time and growing your openness, you will find your confidence and see growth in your bond, which I think is the whole goal with speaking up within relationships, is to better those relationships. If you have any feedback on these different approaches to practicing and implementing speaking up, please feel free to message me on Instagram at It's Mary Young. You can find me on my personal Instagram at Mary Aforiata. You can find all this in the show notes, and you can also find our voicemail page that you can now leave a voicemail for me. So if you have any questions about speaking up or how to handle a situation, for example, maybe you want to be able to speak up about something in your partnership or a friendship and you don't know how to even begin or where to start, please, I would love to be able to chat and share some insights and some advice and maybe a little bit of wisdom on how to handle that. And if you have any stories about how speaking up really benefited you, I also want to hear that too, because we love to celebrate successes here on the Self Love Club. I hope you have an amazing day, and remember to love yourself first.